Hi. So this is my video essay for Text and Critics. The conviction I have chosen to analyze and test its validity is that every story, dispute, or auction has multiple sides, and all of those sides are correct. Now, I was going to write an essay, but the way I was going to write it was as a narrative anyway. Thus, I thought it'd be better to tell a story properly rather than to have you try to discern my intentions on paper. That, and I watched EZA recently and felt a little inspired. I'm kind of drawing off of Einstein's paper on time and physics by giving an example. So this is a story of how I solved my friend's roommate problem. Nothing bad happened, of course, but just that I figured out how to get the two to stop fighting and finally compromise. So sit back and enjoy the show. Part 1. The story of bad roommates. So my friend and I, who we'll call Susie, came up here from Las Vegas to college, and Susie didn't like her roommate at all. So much that she spent most of her time, a good chunk of it anyway, hanging out in my dorm room because she just couldn't get along with her, and the only time she actually would stay in her dorm room was when she needed to sleep or her roommate wasn't there. It was just constant complaints about how her roommate went to bed too early, how she couldn't play music while she studied because her roommate needed quiet, and how her roommate freaked out too much over tests and was extremely controlling. And it came down to where it just sounded like her roommate was a terrible person, that her roommate did things on purpose to be mean. So, I mean, I wasn't looking forward to meeting this girl, and when I did, I was looking for everything bad that I could find in this girl. So, I mean, I didn't particularly like her because I was only looking for her faults and the things that made her dislikable. So, we ended up going through recruitment for sororities, and her roommate, who we're going to call Pam, ended up being my sorority sister. So we started hanging out a bit more, and one time we just went shopping, which I ended up getting to talk to Pam quite a bit and got her whole background story, and it gave me a whole new perspective on her. And prior to that, any problems that Susie had, I was just giving suggestions for compensation. Oh, well, you can't study over there, just come study over here. Oh, you are upset that she goes to bed too early? Well, just stay over here until she goes to bed, and then you can go back to bed whenever you want to. It was kind of a mess, but I was able to talk to Pam, and she had just as many complaints about Susie. She comes into the room talking on her cell phone all the time. She has no respect for that. She doesn't study at all. She's very unproductive and whatnot. I mean, they were things I knew were more habits of Susie, so that got me starting to think that maybe everything Susie was having problems with Pam were just habits, that they had no actual intention behind them other than to get done what that habit was to get done. So I ended up talking Pam into getting headphones so she could cancel out the noise and whatnot. So that actually started it. But it wasn't until I was able to talk to both sides and get a good perspective on both sides that I started to understand and be able to work compromise from both of them rather than one compensate for the other and the other just stay pissed off all the time. So this is me analyzing how paradigms and two-sided stories, how technically Susie and Pam were both correct about each other. So, okay, now part 2. She said, she said. So what even started me to think about addressing this kind of a topic was reading Jane Tompkins' article, Indians, Textualism, Morality, and Problems in History. Because she addresses that prior to the 60s, it was thought Puritans were just as humane to the Indians during the Puritan Indian encounter, and that they were good people and that they were humane and very nice. Well, then evidence came out in the 60s that the Indians royally got screwed over, for lack of better words. But the author doesn't want to accept both sides just at face value, since it just seems there's so much bias in these so-called facts that are coming at her. And so on page 106, she begins to question things. She begins to question, was the Puritan society really as unified as it was thought to be? Were the Indians really as savage as they were thought to be? And it's just questioning both sides, because the truth is out there somewhere, but she had to go and find it rather than just relying on stuff. So she starts to do her own research, and by the end of it, all the sources that Tompkins came across were just as biased as the two sides that were initially telling it. You would get, because up till this point, history books are written from eyes of the Puritans to just, well, this is what happened. And there's no emotion really associated with it. Whereas when you read something like a novel written by a Native American, it's all about how the Puritans came in and essentially just took over the Indians and just ran amuck of things. So so that really inspired me to think about, well, how did I come to the conclusion of Pam and Susie's dilemma? So while reading Tompkins' article, I got to thinking about Thomas Kuhn's article, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, where he talks about the shifts in paradigms. And I guess you can kind of think of people's sides being in paradigms. So I ended up thinking about how I'm from Vegas. I came from where Susie came from, and we had a very similar life growing up. So I already understand her paradigm. I understand her way of thinking. But it wasn't until I talked to Pam and got a real perspective on her paradigm that I could look at the argument a bit more objectively, I guess. But so we're gonna start with paradigms, and I'm gonna go through and explain them. So we're gonna start with something I know and start with part 3, the Vegas paradigm. Back in Vegas, we weren't in a bad side of town. We lived in kind of more of the suburbs, Susie and I. But you could still hear sirens all the time, and it was always really loud. We went to an inner city school where there was a lot of diversity and a lot of different types of music, and everything was loud and in your face, and everything's in your business, and there just wasn't privacy, I guess is a better word for it. So you really learned to think, even when it went beyond the so-called, it's so loud in here I can't hear myself think. We needed to, or else you wouldn't get anything done. The other thing is we had enormous amounts of homework, and just not even homework, just things that had to be done. And so you ended up, any given person in our group of friends stayed up till roughly 2 o'clock every night. And it was, going to bed at a reasonable time wasn't really in our timetable. It wasn't allowed to. On top of that, because there wasn't time to do anything, we didn't have time to stress out. So we crammed and we didn't worry about it. So it was, well, if I don't know it, I don't know it, and I'll accept the grade on it. So, but I mean, you still worried about it slightly, but it wasn't so overtaking. You could easily forget it. But that's the Vegas paradigm. And because I grew up with Susie, I'm able to put myself in those shoes a lot easier, and I can see where things would bug me, where if I wasn't able to play music while I studied, I would be just probably distraught, because that's my thinking process. I need sound to think. So does Susie. So, um, that's the Vegas paradigm, and that's why it's so much easier for me to understand, is because I've been in that all my life. So then we move on to part 4, the Pam paradigm, because it's all about Pam. So Pam is extremely controlling, and she just has the need to be in control of her entire environment. That's why she doesn't like music playing, why she needs to go to bed early, and that really contributes to her test anxiety. And I mean, her entire life story leading up to that, which is personal business, so that's not getting shared, but it really does explain it. And I can now see that, well, in a way, she's right. It really would be annoying for Susie to come in while you're studying just talking really loudly on the phone or for her to be blasting music a lot. But at the same time, I still know how Susie needs music to think, and then Pam needs quiet to focus. So now that I understand both paradigms, it's a lot easier to understand. So now that brings us to part 5, resolution and conclusion. And the resolution is that once Susie understood to start looking at how Pam felt about things and how she saw the world, and how basically vice versa with Pam and understanding Susie, there was no more fighting. Or I mean, of course they still have their disagreements, but they went out on a sushi date as friends the other day. So I would say that's a pretty good conclusion. But I mean, the compromise is a lot easier. Pam understands that Susie needs music, like loud music, and Pam wants her own thing. So she has really nice headphones now that don't hurt her ears, and it was pretty cheap. So it's pretty cheap to make a compromise once everybody understands where they're coming from. I kind of connected back to when we were reading about Darwin from David Quam's book, from Reluctant Mr. Darwin, and how he rejected the idea for a while in this, no, this can't be right, this goes against everything I've known, to, well, I guess so. It could exist. And it's stepping outside your own comfort zone. It's definitely shoving away what you know for the time being and then accepting something new to at least get the understanding. So I kind of want to apply this to some other things. So I think I'm going to do a social experiment. And with that, we come to part 6, our final part. In your shoes, because that's a shoe. Anyway, I'm going to go around and find 2 people, have them think about something they disagree on, and then put each other in each other's shoes and see if they can figure out why the other one is right. Because even though it's not your perspective, in their mind they're right. Thus, your different paradigms make you correct.
Hard to get into the conversation.
Go.
Okay.
So your dispute is over procrastination. Where do you stand?
Definitely procrastinate. It's always the best thing.
This is stupid. Where do you stand?
Well, why do you want to get your work done immediately? I could just like chill out and hang with friends, and I can do my work later. Why should I have to do it now?
Because doing it now makes you feel better in the long run.
But then, what about
and you can hang out with your friends afterwards.
No, my friends are going to be doing work afterwards.
Maybe you should get your friends not to procrastinate either.
Why do we have to have like a whole social upheaval for the sake of not procrastinating? I mean, procrastinating is just so much easier of a solution.
Yeah, but then everybody's done with their work, so then everybody is just in a better mood.
Well, how are you going to convince them?
By telling them procrastination is a bad idea and they'll feel better afterwards.
Sure they've never heard that.
Okay. Switch paradigms.
I can see what you mean about wanting to get it done ahead of time. I feel like my friends, they can just screw my friends. I'll just do my work ahead of time. I don't want to hang out with them anyway. I would much rather do my work while they're hanging out and then hang out alone while they're.
Are you saying something about me? I don't feel like he switched to paradigm.
Switching into sarcasm is a switched paradigm. I think that's a legitimate
No, because
thing.
you're doing sarcasm.
Just argue for procrastination.
Procrastination is a fantastic idea. I mean, really, who wants to get their work done ahead of time?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm way more relaxed and ready for tests and feel better all throughout the day when I don't have to cram and do all my work the day that is due. It's just obnoxious to have to do it at the last minute. I mean, you don't feel like you did it properly, and you don't feel like you really understand what you're doing because you just had to rush through it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you wait until the last minute, then you actually have more stress to get it done, which is actually what's happening right now.
So you're saying that it gets done faster if you leave it to the last minute?
I am saying that because you have more pressure to get it done in the first place.
But do you really think that it's going to get done to its completeness in proper fashion?
With this chemistry assignment, it will, because I can try as many times as I want to until I get it right.
But if you have no time left, what are you supposed to do then? Suppose this was due in half an hour. Do you have it? Are you going to be able to finish it in half an hour?
But it's
Are you
not.
really leaving yourself enough time to finish your assignment?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you guys did well.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you guys dispute about?
Country music.
Okay, and where do you stand on it?
It's awesome.
Why?
It's great.
You gotta have reasons.
How do you defend why you like music?
You
I don't
just-
know. It depends. I couldn't defend country music, that's for sure. Country music sucks. I mean, it's all about like my tractor, my dog, or my unfaithful woman. That's all country music is about. It all sounds the same. They all have the same. It sounds like the same guy too. They're all going, yeah, I love my tractor, blah blah, and you know it gets old so fast. Like, and it's not like I'm not exposed to it. My dad loves country music. I've heard all sorts of country music. I just think it sucks. I've heard everything it has to offer, and I'm not impressed.
Okay.
I would tend to concur with Matt. I think the values that it embodies are not what I personally embody. Like I feel like country music preaches just blind patriotism, and
America!
not that there's anything wrong with being a patriot, but
But being
I
a
think a
blind
healthy-
patriot, you might like
I
trip
think a
over stuff.
healthy
You know, like
dose of skepticism is really needed.
I a bunch of communists.
Okay, so then do you have a reason now why you like it? Like,
America!
I'm serious, dude.
my point is proven. You see this? This is a country fan. Do you want to be like him? No, you don't. So don't listen to country.
Okay, like your reasons can like range from like a valid reason like they had.
Okay,
And-
would you agree with the description of stromboli as being pizza sandwich with mustard?
I
I
don't
would
want
tend to
mustard in
concur.
it.
Well, there's mustard.
You would tend to
I
concur.
would tend to concur.
Hey, can you edit this? There's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be
going to
some
edit it
movie
out.
in this.
I know, but okay, it can range from like an actual reason which they're giving to how it makes you feel.
To America. I don't know. It'd be pretty hard to justify your country music.
Just justify it, please.
It's about faithfulness to country and family, and nothing more important than that.
Okay, now switch paradigms. So you two gotta argue for it, and you're arguing against it.
You know, I mean, American music kind of got started with country. I mean, back before electric guitars, these guys were, you know, rocking their fiddles, their ukuleles, their acoustic guitars. I mean, these guys are like the original rock and roll musicians, and some of them are really talented. Like, you know, Brad Paisley, he plays a mean guitar. And, you know, they're pretty skilled, and they've been making this kind of music for longer than anyone else has.
There's no good guitar players in country. There's never anyone who actually knows what they're doing. They're just strumming chords.
I would tend to concur with Matt and say that country music just it embodies the good old American spirit. I mean, you don't see any of these country music listeners going around and shooting each other. They're out shooting animals.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so what are you arguing about?
Healthy food versus like unhealthy food.
Okay, where do you stand on it?
I stand on the side that healthy food is awesome
Why?
because it's healthy and because it's good for you and because bad food like Robert here eats makes you fat and makes you lazy.
Yes, because Robert is just so fat.
He's a little bit chunky. Just kidding.
Okay, and Robert, what side do you stand on?
This side, fast food is good. It is an inherent right to be able to eat what you want to eat when you want to eat it. Why should I have all these crazy government loony people telling me I can't drink this soda, I can't eat this hamburger?
It's not a freaking government conspiracy. It's about being healthy and being able to like walk a mile instead of like collapsing after the first 200 feet because you're like, oh, I'm tired. Oh wait, I need a soda.
But isn't it the individual's personal choice to put what they want to put
I mean, it's their own personal choice, but it's not the right way to live your life.
So,
if you want,
so you can decide the right way other people should live their
Well,
lives.
Okay, switch sides.
I can eat whatever the heck I want to. If I want to have a fat day and eat like Reese's peanut butter cups and drink all the Mountain Dew I can do that.
You sure can, but in the long run, is it really worth it? Do you want to have diabetes? Do you want to die at age 60? Do you want to have chronic heart problems?
Well, you know, some people get off lucky, and I am one of those people who usually gets off lucky.
There's no guarantee. It's in the long run.
Oh, there's a guarantee.
In the long run, it's just asking for trouble. I mean, obesity is something that right now just plagues our nation, and it's not getting any better. I mean, shouldn't we encourage kids to start young, to start eating healthy, and to keep that habit up into their adult life?
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I think kids should be able to eat whatever they want, and they can eat whatever they want. And as long as they exercise, and as long as they like get regular checkups and stay like within their correct body mass index, that was called. I don't know. I feel like they can eat whatever they want, and it'll be, you know, it might not be the best for them, but. I don't know, Jocelyn was arguing that bacon is good, gravy is awesome, eat ice cream whenever you want, because you should have the choice to.
I would agree. Moderation is key, but I'm arguing that it's going overboard. I mean,
I don't think so.
Parents aren't watching their kids. They aren't seeing what they eat. They aren't really helping them. And I mean, a child needs guidance. They need that support system. They need that.
Okay, maybe it's rebellion. Maybe they're like, no, screw you, Mom and Dad. I'm going to eat as much as I want just because you tell me not to. It's exactly like smoking, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, underage.
What are you guys arguing about?
We're arguing about Pokemon.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
what
gonna be
about
fun. Bulbasaur is the best freaking starter in existence.
Okay, why?
Because, for one, it's freaking cute. It's just this tiny little, like, dinosaur thing with a little bulb on its back. It's the best name ever as well. And not only that, but when it's fully evolved, it is competitively viable. You can use that thing, and it will destroy all of the things. All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
I picked Torchic, not because of its first evolution, but because of the end evolution, Blaziken.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Venusaur is only competitive if you have that download ability. But Blaziken will get you through the Elite Four, essentially by itself.
Yeah, but the thing is that Blaziken, it's firefighting, and that's the thing, is that that's just such a typical type now. Every starter for the last 3 gens has had a firefighting type.
But it was the first firefighting type.
But it wasn't the best. Infernape's a better mixed attacker, technically.
Mixed attackers aren't very viable anymore.
Well, sort of. But, I mean, you can still run something. And the thing is, it doesn't have access to priority. Infernape has Mach Punch, things like that. And besides, Bulbasaur with Chlorophyll can basically just hit it with Sleep Powder before it can do anything. Everything's all good. But besides, Blaziken's bad.
Why? Because it's an Uber.
But that's not because of that's not because of something that innately happens to it. I mean, like, Venusaur has like the better ability that doesn't actually end up getting it banned completely. Whereas Speed Boost Blaziken is just ridiculously broken, in a sense.
Okay, now switch
Once again,
sides.
that's download ability.
Switch sides.
Alright. So, Blaziken, firefighting actually has really, really, really good coverage, especially when you pair it with Stone Edge, or any sort of stone coverage. But, other than that, I mean, it's Speed Boost, which is, you know, a Dream World ability, of course, just makes it ridiculously hard to counter, and it can taunt pass those boosts to any other Pokemon.
Well, Bulbasaur will get you to the first 2 gyms like that while you gather another team.
Yeah, but the thing is that when Bulbasaur hits like Blaine and some of the other, especially the Elite Four, the first member of the Elite Four is an Ice type gym. That's gonna wreck your Venusaur from the get go.
Well, yeah, but that's why you build the team around the Venusaur. Bulbasaur gets you through the first gyms, so you can gather the Pokemon that'll help you later. Like Blaine is a fire type.
Yeah.
In order to get to him, you have to use Surf, which is primarily a water type thing.
Yeah.
So,
but the thing is that with Blaziken you can basically just play through the entire game like that. By the time you get to the first gym, even though it's rock, you have a fighting move to be able to completely take care of it.
well, that's if you're a level 16.
Well, yeah, but if you're just using Blaziken, you're gonna get, or if you're just using Torchic at that point, you're going to get a combo skin before that first gym. Generally.
Yeah, it depends on how much you grind. But if you say Bulbasaur was in 3rd generation,
yeah,
it would just be able to get through that first gym, and you can pick up, say, a Meryl if you wanted a Meryl for a water type.
Yeah.
If you're that guy. Meryl suck.
Meryl's awesome. We're about to get to another.
Okay, well, that was good.
Meryl suck.